Hi, Matt Bisogno here from tennisprofits.com, and the French Open starts this Sunday, just a couple of days from when I'm recording this. So with that in mind, I thought I'd have a look at the Tennis Profits data and see if we can find any interesting bets in the outright men's market, where of course the market is dominated by Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner. But is there anybody else in there that maybe we should be taking a look at, perhaps with a view to betting each way half the odds to reach the final? Let's go and have a look. So the first place I've gone to is stats.tennisprofits.com, and you'll be familiar with this. This is where all the matches are. And I'm looking at the men's stats page or tab. Now this is currently undergoing renovation. We are going to do a lot more with this tab. It's been like this since day one of Tennis Profits a good few years ago now, and we're keen to improve it, to make it more flexible, more informative really, to tell you more about the tennis players that are listed. But for now we have it in this format, and I'll show you how I'm going to use it to review the players for the French Open. So top left here, I've got some options. I've selected the date range of the last year, surface clay, because the French Open is clay, and I've selected our TP rankings rather than the official rankings. So I've gone with TP rankings. The TP score is here, and the ranking order, well, you can see it's 1 through 16 and so on down there. So these players are listed in our opinion of clay performance order in the last year, and you can see that Carlos Alcaraz is top and he's clear. Casper Ruud is second, and then we have Zverev, Tsitsipas, Rublev, Musetti, Sinner, Rune, Djokovic, Sandolo, Baez, Medvedev, Domino, and so on. So let's have a look at Carlos Alcaraz and Casper Ruud, and to do that I'm going to use the custom matches tab, which I've got open here. I'm just going to go back to custom matches and enter Alcaraz here and Ruud here, and then select the clay surface and submit. Now we've got the head-to-head data for Alcaraz and Ruud, and we can see that Casper Ruud has actually beaten Carlito a couple of times in their last 3 meetings, most of those on hard courts, indoor court as well, and on clay back in 2021 Alcaraz was dominant against Ruud. None of that really tells us too much, because this was the ATP finals, which maybe is a little late in the season to be taken seriously. It was also a round robin game. In any case, they are our 1 and 2 ranked players on the surface, and you can see that on the chart, which also doesn't tell us a great deal. So let's get down to the actual data here, and we can see their last 10 on the current surface, they've both lost 1, and if we look in more detail at that, we can see that Alcaraz has just won the Rome International and is taking this week off to get ready for the French Open. We can see also that Ruud won in Madrid the week before, or a couple of weeks before, went to Rome and went to the quarterfinals, got bashed by Sinner there, but I suspect that Ruud was of the view that his warm-up for the French Open was complete, and this, I wouldn't read this result too literally. So that's their recent form. They're both obviously in great form. Down in the filters section, I've got a main tour clay calendar year. I'm just going to extend that out to 1 year, and we can see that Alcaraz predictably is the dominant clay player at this time. Casper Ruud has done pretty well, and in their head-to-head we can see that Alcaraz is dominant on most stats. He does have some frailties when it comes to his own service game sometimes. You can see some red numbers here for getting broken in the first service game. Quite a high number there, so that might be a very cheap early trade in his matches. You can see some other stuff around breaks of serve as well in that section. So that's kind of interesting, just from a kind of swing trading perspective. Okay, but what I really want to show you on here is the tour average comparison. Now, predictably, Alcaraz has a lot of green. He is above average for most things on the tour. That's not a surprise to anybody. We do have that broken in first service game anomaly there, which remains interesting. Casper Ruud is also above the tour average for most things, but only slightly above for many of them, and that I thought was quite interesting. I also thought what was interesting about Ruud is that he doesn't win a lot of big tournaments, and you can see that when it comes to holding serve at 5-4 and those kind of scenarios, maybe his bottle is slightly open to question. If you're a Casper Ruud fan, I apologise, but I'm just reading the data and inferring it in that way. So Ruud is not really for me, and in any case, as I'll show you in a moment, he's got one other major stumbling block in terms of going deep in the French Open, and that is that he's in the same half of the draw as Carlos Alcaraz. So looking at Alcaraz on his own, if we just click on the player name, that's going to open a new window with Carlito's data in it. You can see here he's rated 1 on our ranks on grass and on clay, and we can see that these what we saw already about his recent form, he's in flying form. What I want to do here is I want to articulate a bit more about his performance against the tour average. So these numbers are comparing him against the tour average. He holds his serve on clay almost 10% more than the tour average on the main tour, on the ATP tour. His return points won is more than 10% better than the average. His break points saved is nearly 15%. His break points won is nearly 15%. The opponent holds nearly 20% less often against him. These numbers are robustly green all the way up and down, not just small bits above the average, but way above the average. Maybe I'm not saying anything that we don't know already here, but what that leads me to when I start to look at the betting odds for the French Open, Alcaraz is 6-5, 5-4 if you can get on with these guys. Basically, I hesitate to say he's value at that price, but it's not the wrong price. He definitely has a standout chance to win the tournament, and the upshot of that is that I don't want to bet anybody in his half of the draw to beat him. So the good thing about that is that leaves the entire other half of the draw, which is dominated from a betting perspective by Yannick Sinner, who is now back from his enforced holiday and has been playing very well on clay, which might not be his preferred surface. So let's have a look at Sinner. In actual fact, before I look at Sinner, I just wanted to I drew up a little chart. It does look like I dropped spaghetti all over the floor, but I think this is quite a useful chart. I just need to change the window a little bit so that you can see all of it, hopefully. Okay, there we go. So this is somewhat akin to Spaghetti Junction, but what I've done, this is the top half of the draw, and it's the half that excludes Alcaraz, who is in the bottom half of the draw. So you can see that Sinner is actually seeded 1 and Alcaraz is 2, so Sinner is top and Alcaraz is at the bottom. I have taken the first 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 players in the betting lists and excluded any player that was in that is in Alcaraz's half of the draw. So Musetti, who I think is a phenomenal player, probably the most watchable player on the tour for me, on the men's tour. Musetti, Ruud, Aruna Berrettini, who I think is absent, Tsitsipas and Fritz. They are excluded because they've got to get past Carlos to get to the final. That leaves about 9 players, I think, here who are in the top half, including Sinner and Djokovic and Zverev. So let's start. Essentially what I'm trying to do here is I want to find the player in this half of the draw that I think has the best chance to get to the final, and I hope it isn't Jannik Sinner. Because obviously his price, he's dominant in the betting market in his half of the draw. So let's see if we can do something along those lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to look at Sinner versus Djokovic using my custom match setup, and we can see Djokovic is 38 now. At some point he's going to be regressive. You can see actually in the head to head, Djokovic still leads 5-4, but he was 4-0 up going into Wimbledon 2023. And by the end of that year, since the end of 23, he's now 4-1 down. They haven't met much recently, just twice since the beginning of 24. Sinner winning both of those, one a semi, the other final, both on hard courts. Sinner is the young man and number one in the world. Djokovic has been a phenomenal legend in the sport, but if we look at his recent form, I just want to put this on calendar year here, and you can see that these red numbers here are telling. Now he's two wins, 2 losses this calendar year on clay. It's a small enough sample size, and of course we can expect him to bring his full A game to Paris, but still, these red numbers, these are comparisons not against Sinner, but against the tour average. His game is just not where you want to be if you're thinking of going even remotely deep in a Grand Slam, particularly clay, where the rallies tend to be longer. I feel like this is a bridge too far. I could see him going quite well at Wimbledon potentially on the faster surface with the shorter rallies, but here on clay it looks a bit tricky for him, and I think he's the wrong price in the market. This 12-1 looks a complete chuck out to me. I might be wrong, I often am, but he's not for me, definitely. Sinner, we can see, has played very well this year. He got to the final in Rome where he lost to Alcaraz. He got to the semi-final in the French Open where he lost to Alcaraz. So against everybody else, he's unbeaten, and that's probably why he is the price he is to get to the final. He's a phenomenal competitor. His stamina is outstanding, his ability excellent. He's going to be obviously very tough to beat in his half of the draw, but he doesn't have the overall dominance that Alcaraz does. And if you were worried that he was the most likely guy to get to the final from his half of the draw, then there are ways to play that or to hedge later on. But for the purposes of this, I'm looking for somebody else. So I obviously 6-5 is not in our half of the draw. Djokovic is a chuck out. Sinner is reluctantly overlooked from a price perspective, and then we're looking at the likes of Zverev and Draper and so on. So let's take a look at Zverev and Draper. So Zverev and Draper on clay, and we can compare them against each other, and so they haven't played each other previously. We can see that Draper has been ascendant this year. He's been playing really, really well. Clay, not traditionally his surface, but he's definitely showed improved form this season. As you can see, he got to the final in Madrid against Casper Ruud. It was a pretty good match actually, and Ruud's bottle again came into question when he lost the second set and it went to a decider. But he played very well in that match. Draper went on to give Alcarz a game in the quarterfinals in Rome before yielding 6-4, 6-4. Zverev, by contrast, has not been going as deep in his tournaments. 4th round, quarterfinal, 2nd round. I imagine this match against Muller, he again probably wanted a couple of days before the main draw to get ready for the French Open, but he's definitely not been in the same kind of form that he was, let's say, last year. So we can see on the calendar year clay again, we can see that Draper has the edge, not by much, but by a little bit, by a meaningful amount on a number of the key stats. And again, if we compare with the tour average, Zverev's breakpoint save performance is not great. His second serve is below average, and yeah, I mean, I have some temperament doubts about Zverev anyway, and so he's not on my list. But Draper is kind of interesting. Let's have a look at his draw. So he's in the top quarter, so he'd have to face Sinner, which is probably less than ideal. We can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these players at the top of the market in his quarter, which is quite a lot. And he'd have to face either Mensik or Hurkacz or Fonseca, most likely, in his 8th of the draw, perhaps Alex de Minaur as well, before getting to line up against Zinner in a quarter final. So he's got a really tough run to the final if he's going to get there. I think he's a great player, really ascendant this year, exciting for British tennis, definitely one to look at for Wimbledon, but maybe the draw here is unfavourable. So where are we? We've eliminated Djokovic, Zverev and Draper from consideration. Let's have a look at Medvedev, de Minaur. Actually, de Minaur is kind of in that half as well. I think I'm looking in this second quarter here for someone to try to get to the final. One of them will at least get to the semi-final, so that gives us a bit of a chance. So let's have a look at the guys down here and see if we can't find a bit of value. So in this quarter, we've got Djokovic at the bottom of it and Zverev at the top of it. And if those two were to meet, I would lean towards Zverev. But he actually has quite a tough game in the first round against Lernertine, who's a really upwardly mobile player from the USA. So I'm kind of looking at these other two, Medvedev and Sandolo, to see what their credentials are like. So let's put them in a head-to-head. Medvedev, as we can see, is 29 now. I'm quite surprised by that. He seems to have been around for absolutely forever. Still 11 in the world. Surface rank about the same. Sandolo is 18 in the world. Higher on clay. Clay is definitely a favoured surface for him. And if we look at their last 10, just get my head out of the way, we can see that Medvedev has been struggling a little bit, not really beaten anyone of note, easily enough rolled over by Ruud when that guy won in Madrid. Third round in Rome, close game against Musetti. I do expect him to raise his game as he tends to do in the Grand Slams, but you just definitely be a note of caution about him. In contrast, let me just make this a little smaller so we can see this. Sandolo's again went to the semi-finals in Madrid against Casper Ruud, close game. Then Rome beat Jarry, beat Ofner, lost to Sinner, close in the first set, couple of breaks in the second. Couple of matches in Hamburg, again probably jettisoned early to get ready for the French. I mean, it's not amazing, but in a wide open half, he's kind of tempting. Let's have a look at the so the main tour for the calendar year. We can see that Medvedev 7 from 3. Sandolo's played a lot more. Clay's his surface, well above the tour average for a number of stats and somewhat above in a number of others. Certainly on service stats, he's got the edge over Medvedev, and I think at the prices, I'm kind of inclined to go with Sandolo to have a bit of a run in the French Open. Let's see what price he is again. Yeah, if you can get on with Boyle, I cannot. He is 100 to 1. So that would be 50 to 1 to make the final if you're each way. There are a few 80s and therefore 40 to 1 to make the final, which might be attractive as well. I couldn't find a make the final market yet. So when that comes out, that'll be interesting. You could obviously, if you're not betting the win part, then you've got, you might take a bit shorter than half these odds. But I think looking at the prices and looking at the draw, just because I'm sort of against Djokovic and Zverev, and nothing else massively appeals. Draper got a tough quarter. Medvedev, I mean, I might even have, these are small bets to be clear. There's not, they're not strong, strong fancies by any manner of means, but we are trying to work out who's favoured by the draw and who's unfavoured. We can see that anybody who's in Alcaraz's half of the draw is going to be in a difficult spot sooner or later. Assuming Alcaraz goes all the way, and anyone who's in the first quarter, Zinner's quarter, is also likely up against it. That looks a pretty deep quarter. The second quarter then looks the one to be in, and of those, Zverev and Djokovic are a little underpriced. I mean, you can start to make a case for Zverev just because of making the case against Djokovic, essentially. 16 to 1, Zverev 8 to 1 to make the final. Not impossible, not terrible. There'll be some hedging opportunities if he can get past Lernatin. I doubt his price would shorten much after he wins his first round match, and that might be the time to bet him each way, Zverev. The alternatives are Sandolo and Medvedev, both of which are 100 to 1 outright, and they could feasibly meet in this quarter final, which would be obviously a very happy outcome. So that's the way I'm leaning at this stage. More materially, that's how I use the custom match functionality to compare players against each other, and our new player stats pages to get a bit more intel on players, comparing them with the tour average, as well as comparing them in the head-to-head like this. So hopefully that's interesting. The women's tournament tends to be a lot more open than the men's. Historically, there have been some big priced winners in the women's tournament, so that might be one to definitely dig down in the women's stats pages and try to find a player at a price. I'll leave that up to you, but we can see there's quite a few down here. There's not a huge disparity between the sort of 8th placed tennis player on our clay rankings and the 20th placed, so there might be something to go at there. That's for you to do. This is enough for this video now. I hope it's been interesting. A reminder that if you're not currently a Tennis Profits member, you can get your first month for half price. Just a couple of days left for that offer. That's going to close on Sunday, so do get involved if you'd like to. Yeah, that's it. This is Medvedev Sandolo saying thank you very much for watching. Best of luck with your French Open trades and outright bets if you're betting outright, and goodbye for now.